I can feel the hate comments as you write them. They feed me, drive me, my existence depends on them. Provide me with your sweet emotional sustenance. In real talk, though, there's little to no chance that the next entry in the Elder Scrolls series will be set in the Arconian province of Black Marsh. You might remember my previous comments towards why I don't believe the game's gonna be set in elsewhere. Many of these points carry over into this stance as well, so let's explore exactly why that is, shall we? Number 1. Argonians are freaking weird. Now let's get this out of the way really quickly here. I love the Argonian culture, their designs, personalities, cultural structure, the connection to the histories, and Black Marsh are some of the most interesting things of the series, and they have yet to be explored fully. Being Argonian means you have a connection to the rest of the race in Black Marsh, you're a follower of the Hist, and defend it with your life. That being said though, we know little to nothing about the Argonians, and it seems Bethesda intends to keep it that way for a long time. Argonian politics is largely unknown, and what we do know is simply that they prefer to stay out of the affairs of other races. They instead prefer to deal with what goes on in their own province with a good deal of secrecy. In fact, one of the only things that we do know for sure are that when Argonians are born under the sign of the Shadow, that they're turned over to the Dark Brotherhood as their culture adheres to the belief of Sithis. This secrecy is partially what gives Argonians their appeal. It's a culture and species that has very little interaction with the rest of Tamriel. Small hints are all we ever get about the race, and this drives players and fans of the series to inherently want to see more of their culture, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good choice for a full title in the series. As stated in my comments on the Khajiit province of Elsewhere, Argonians as a race are not quite suited to meet the needs of what Bethesda sees as having a wide audience appeal. That isn't to say that Argonians aren't interesting, but as a society, it inherently doesn't have enough appeal to the casual gamer in order to carry an entire game. And like it or not, if you're watching this video, you're in the minority of players and fans of the Elder Scrolls series. You enjoy the game so much you're willing to seek out more after playing. However, this is a minority and it's not the main source of revenue for a publisher. Your friend who works full-time then buys Skyrim because that guy at GameStop told him to, that's the main revenue source for Bethesda. These are the people who buy a couple games per year and need to make sure what they're buying interests them beforehand, and it needs to be something they can relate to. How do you relate to a game instantly? Well, you have the majority of characters be human. This is why Cyrodiil and Skyrim were chosen as entries in the series in recent years, because it appeals to the casual audience. If your casual gamer friend sees a game that he might be interested in, then sees that the game is filled with a bunch of weird sap-drinking lizards, he's much less likely to relate to the game and consider purchasing it. And number 2, Black Marsh is scary. Argonians are secretive as all hell, but it's not necessarily all to do with their society. A huge reason why we haven't learned enough about them is because Black Marsh is a huge death trap filled with alligators, monsters, diseases, deep marshes, and probably diseased alligator monster death traps in deep marshes. Black Marsh is extremely hostile to anything that doesn't already live there, making penetrating that environment nearly impossible beyond the outskirts of the province. Argonians are such good and well-rounded fighters because they evolved dealing with the harshness of their province. Historically, anyone else that's gone towards the inner regions has faced near certain death, sometimes even from the Argonians themselves. This means that basing an entire game there makes it difficult to include the other races in the series, and next to impossible for any of those races to have presence in the game at all itself. And trust me when I say, your friend doesn't want to only see lizards everywhere for 100 to 200 hours. So Black Marsh doesn't really allow for a diverse cast of characters in the way that Cyrodiil or Skyrim did. Cyrodiil, of course, was the ideal location back in Oblivion because of the centralized location of the province, so it allowed all the other races to intermingle there. While in Skyrim even, they ran into a few issues with having diverse races. They rectified that though with the inclusion of the Dominion influence throughout the storyline. Black Marsh takes that problem in Skyrim over to the extreme. It sits in the corner of the continent with little access from anyone, and they can't just put a bunch of other races in the game for no reason at all. In a long-running series like The Elder Scrolls, continuity matters in lore. Yes, it sometimes means that changing things like having Cyrodiil not be marshland, but compared to the retcon job they'd have to do in Black Marsh, it's small in comparison. Number 3, not making your computer or console explode. Video games make a lot of decisions in order to maximize hardware performance during gameplay. Making sure their games run as smoothly as possible is accomplished through a series of cutting corners in many cases. It's the exact reason why you'll see most female characters in games either having a short hair or having it in a ponytail. Animating long hair properly is extremely hard to make realistic. Game locations are also victims of this. Deserts and snowy climates are a lot easier and more common in video games because they have less vegetation, wildlife, and other stuff that needs to be independently animated and can affect performance. In short, the less stuff you have on your screen and the less moving stuff, the better things will generally perform. So let's take these things and apply them to Black Marsh, a huge jungle teeming with vegetation, trees, grass, vines, water, fauna, bugs, and who knows what else. Basically, every step you take, you will probably ruin something's house. Creating that environment and keeping it running smooth will be a huge endeavor to undertake for Bethesda. Getting it to work properly on one platform, let alone 3 or 4, would be a monumental task that their engine most likely couldn't handle.
But Bethesda is working on a new game engine and say the technology isn't there yet, so it could be Black Marsh.
I mean, that's entirely possible, but taking into account the other points, if this were Bethesda's line of thinking, it would be more likely to take place in a province like Valenwood or the Somerset Isles. So in short, Argonians are weird, Black Marsh is weird, and it would be really difficult for them to make a game set there because it would take a crap ton of development and optimization. Of course, though, these are all my personal opinions. Maybe you got some other really good points or anything. If you agree, if you disagree, let me know your reasoning down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to continue the conversation, you can always go and join my Discord server. I got a really good community over there. I'm usually there every day, so you can go and talk to me, ask me whatever you want. If you enjoyed this video and you feel like supporting me, there's a couple different ways you can do that. If you're watching on VidMe, the best way to do it, of course, is to tip the video. I'd really appreciate it. If you're not on VidMe, or if you want to go support my Patreon, I've started that up now, and you can, of course, throw $1 over there. I would really love that, and it would be great because it helps support everything that I do. So, yo, that's why it's not going to take place in Black Marsh. I am PattyJack, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day.